Hey, my friends, just wanted to answer a question. I got a message recently talking about investments. If you're a prepared minded person, and you can define that however you wish, how should you go about investing in your future? This is a big, I don't want to say a problem, but it can be for a lot of people that just really don't know where to start. It can be really confusing, and it can be something that you can get mixed information depending on where you go. Some people say just put all your money in index funds. Other people say buy a lot of bonds, maybe more bonds than stocks. Some people say buy individual stocks over index funds. And then you got a lot of other people that say don't worry about any of that stuff. That's all very risky. Just buy physical bullion, gold, silver, platinum, things like that. And so I just wanted to weigh in and just give you my 2 cents. There's always people's opinion, and I'm definitely full of opinion, as you know. But I think that what really makes the most sense, at least to me, is to diversify and to maybe have a little bit of all of it, at least what you can afford. And so obviously, when it comes to physical bullion like gold and silver, they typically have different time horizons to really see, results historically than maybe like other investments like mutual funds. Like, for example, this is, of course, just a snapshot in time. So this is not always indicative of every year. And sometimes these numbers are inverted versus other investments. But let's just say, for example, if we do the year to date. So these are some year to date stats. The Dow Jones, if you bought it a year ago, and of course, today's date is October the 25th, 2017. But if you bought a year ago a share of some type of index fund that was a reflection or it was a representation of the Dow Jones index. Okay, so you have the best representation of those 30 stocks that make up the Dow. You would be up about 18% right now. And so an 18% yield is very good, but it's not always been like that. Sometimes it's up and sometimes it's down for the year. So the Dow Jones index is up. But what about other things? Like silver, for example. Silver is almost flat for the year to date. So if you bought an ounce of silver, you would almost have the same price as you did then. In fact, I think it's only up just a few cents in the year to date. So you might be at most maybe 0.5% or so up. Not really much to speak of. What happened if you bought gold with that bit of money, those resources for your investment? Gold really isn't up that much either, year to date. It's only up to about around 4% roughly year to date. Now, it has surged a lot higher than that in the last 12 months because things go up and down. I'm just giving you a snapshot in time of year to date. But this is just kind of an example, though, to demonstrate that just because one investment is up doesn't mean that all investments are up. Sometimes, once again, when silver may be 30% up for the year, the Dow Jones could be negatives, for the year. And you kind of have to put things in perspective. That's why I think if you diversify, you can get a nice balance of when things are up on one side and things are down the other side, it balances out kind of even. So you're not all just putting your money into one sector or one type of investment. For example, bonds. Usually there tends to be, not always, but there tends to be an inverse, correlation or relationship with bonds and stocks. So let's just say, for example, that, stocks are up, bonds could be getting hammered. And that's kind of just how things are in a lot of investments. They kind of have a yin and the yang. And so hopefully to answer the question the best I can is if you're going to buy physical commodities, maybe like gold and silver, you want to buy the physical bullion and have them in your possession instead of just buying paper stocks, for example. And if you're going to buy stocks and bonds, you may want to put, get those into like no load types of investments that may actually reflect the indexes. So, I would rather buy indexes than single stocks or mutual funds that are large baskets of diversified company portfolios than to put all your money or a majority of your money, at least in that sector, maybe in just one or two companies. And it's not to say that people haven't been successful putting a majority of their money and being very focused on an investment. There's actually a lot of reasons you may want to do that. Very, very successful people have done this and they continue to do this with success. But for the average person that doesn't want to spend the time to really research and to keep up with their investments, they don't want to be an active investor, it may be a lot smarter for them just to accept the potential for lower yields, but also just to have something that is a lot more diversified to be a little bit safer, at least in the long term. And we talk about long term, like gold and silver, for example, or those types of commodities like precious metals, like even platinum. Those typically have a horizon or an investment timeline of a minimum of around 5 years. That's just kind of the standard for those. They're considered more of a longer term investment because it takes a little while to kind of work through the ups and downs in the market to get to a new foundational higher price than when you paid for it. So that could be in contrast to stocks and bonds, depending on what you get or what index you get into. Because those actually have a little bit different horizon depending on what they are. Some of them could be very short term and there be almost guaranteed income. And then some of them could be even more long term than 5 years to really increase your chances. I mean, almost guarantee that you're going to actually be up. And so you kind of have to really look at what you're getting into. And so my biggest thing is don't invest in things that you don't know anything about. That's the takeaway here today. Don't invest in things that you don't know anything about. And don't buy into things that you're just emotional about, but know nothing about any of the background of the companies, or you don't know how the funds work. I would do a lot of research. And I don't think that you really necessarily need a financial advisor if you do a little research about how all this works. You can save yourself fees and charges and loads. You definitely don't need someone to take a certain percent every year of your earnings just because they bought a fund for you. There's a lot of places that you can go as an individual and buy funds. But I just want to put that out. There's a lot of people that seem very confused and they feel like that they just have to pick one type of commodity or one type of investment or investment vehicle. And it's not that way at all. You could certainly have a 401k that you fund, maybe even an IRA. You could even turn around and have maybe a health savings account and maybe a certain type of a short-term fund. Maybe you're working on saving up for a boat and you have all kinds of investment vehicles. Maybe you're looking at maybe like an emergency fund, and part of that outside of a savings account or savings bonds maybe is, at least in part, could be put into a diversified portfolio of precious metals. Maybe that's for you. Maybe it's not. But you have to look at your tolerance and your risk levels, because if you can't sleep at night, then what you're doing is not really going to be beneficial. You have to be really okay. And to be okay with what you're doing, you have to really understand what you're doing and what the long-term goals are. I wish everyone the very best. Stay tuned. I'll have a few more videos coming out soon. Thanks for watching.